Hello, I'm Jake Boudreau, civic journalist at Tello Community Television. This week, on the record, members of local organizations have confirmed they were denied student summer grants this year, despite the fact they received them in previous years. The Nova Scotia Department of Natural Resources talks about the wildfire and forest fire season. Local recipients of age-friendly communities grants were recently announced. Eastern Zone Community Health Boards launched the Community Health Plan for 2025-2029. And a local adult learner details his journey. But first, EverWind Fuels hosts public sessions to give the public an update on their project in Point Tupper. With me today is EverWind Fuels Director of Engagement. Welcome back, Mark Stewart.
Thanks, Jake, for having me back again. It's always a delight.
First, I understand EverWind Fuels held a public information session in mid-June in Guysborough. There was also one in Colchester too. So why did you hold these public meetings? What was the purpose of them?
Yeah, that's correct, Jake. We had a number of public information sessions throughout June. So one in Colchester was in relation to our two projects there, Windy Ridge and Gamitinuk. We went through a process of optimizing those sites. So looking at the layout, the infrastructure that's in place, and the turbine model and manufacturer that we're going to utilize in them. And through that process, optimize the layouts. So the session that we had with the community was bringing back those revised layouts to the community and talking through the rationale behind it. So why do we make the changes? What's the benefit in terms of, reduction in environmental footprint and impacts to wetlands, water courses. And so it was a great session that we held at the Divert Legion, where we had probably around 60 community members present and walked through a quick presentation, but then really opened it up to an hour and a half of questions from the public to really address any specific concerns or questions that the public had. And the following evening, we're in Guysborough County at the Shedabukta Lifestyle Center and held a similar style event there. It was specifically for our wind farm 1 that we have in MODG, so the municipality of the district of Guysborough. That site is located just to the east of Boylston, to the north of St. Francis Harbor, and to the south of kind of Pirate Harbor, Mulgrave area. So it's a site there primarily on Crown land that we've been doing extensive work on for the last 3 years. And it was an opportunity to go back to the community with additional information. So that site, we now have proper kind of wind resource analysis of the site. We've done about 12,000 hours of on the ground field assessment. And then we've also done extensive community engagement and consultation over the last really 3 years to inform that layout. And then in addition to that, we've completed what's called an MEKS, or a Mi'kmaq Ecological Knowledge Study, as well as been in discussion with Mi'kmaq communities throughout Nova Scotia in relation to that project. So our presentation was the revised layout that we're intending to submit or to register with the Department of Environment for an environmental assessment of the site. And it looks at a reduction in overall turbines in the area. So originally our sizing layout had 84 turbines, and we've reduced that to 54 pad locations that will be registering as part of the environmental assessment process. It's likely that there will be less than that constructed, but that gives us some redundancy in the event that some of those locations cannot be constructed. And so we talked through the revised layout with the community and exact turbine locations, and provided maps as well as visual simulations from various kind of vantage points throughout the municipality of Guysborough.
Now, how did the discussions go? You laid out some information for the public. Did the public have a chance to respond or provide some input there?
Certainly. So yeah, the whole intention with these presentations was we would speak for about 30 minutes and then open it up for an hour and a half of questions and comments. So the idea is, yeah, we'd speak less and listen more. And that was certainly kind of was welcomed by the community. And we have a very active and engaged community liaison committee in Guysborough County that through conversations with members there, they recommended holding a presentation in this format to ensure that people that were voicing, questions, could be heard by all. So we had strong attendance at the session in Guysborough County. So I would suggest that there were, in the vicinity of 40 people, 40 to 50 people present at the event. And we certainly heard some questions, as broad and varied from impacts to the environment, to questions around turbine locations and siting, and then certainly conversation around opportunities associated with the project. So whether that be employment opportunities or whether that be direct kind of payments to the municipality or into a community benefits fund through a community benefits agreement that we have in place with MODG.
Now, do you get the sense there was any opposition, or was it more questions out of curiosity and just seeking general or more specific information?
I think there's certainly in all communities a spectrum of viewpoints, and at this event there was representation from all viewpoints. Those people in the community that are concerned with projects of this nature coming into their communities, as well as those people that are really supportive of projects of this nature coming into their communities, and they all have their rationale for it. And it was certainly beneficial as the ones developing the projects in the community to hear their perspectives and hear their concerns and be able to sit there in front of a large group of people and openly, transparently respond to their questions. We had a moderator in place for both events, and something that he said at both events right at the start that I thought was really important is like, we will answer all questions at the events this evening. It's not necessarily that the public will like the response that they hear, but we'll certainly, like, his job was to hold us account to answer the questions, and that's something that we certainly committed to. It's not to say that everyone liked the responses, but we gave a response to all the questions that we heard.
Now, I also understand there was a meeting at Friends United in Kemp Road. I heard from some officials at the municipality of the County of Richmond. Maybe you can talk about what took place there and why that meeting was held.
Yeah, and so it was a meeting actually last Wednesday at Friends United, and the intention with the meeting was to provide, like we do with communities such as Guysborough, Colchester, provide various representatives of government with a project update at multiple different levels. So we had representation from federal members, provincial, and then municipal representatives. And the idea is that we were able to provide everyone with a consistent update from a global perspective. This is, these are some of the key milestones that we've achieved over this period of time. These are some of the ongoing challenges, and this is kind of our time frame to addressing them. Then at a provincial level, we were able to speak to kind of the milestones, achievements, challenges, as well as at a municipal level. So it's consistent messaging across all three levels of government with representatives from the Strait area was the intention. So it was a great opportunity to connect with people, have a full team of staff there that are working daily in their specific fields to speak to everyone in relation to our project. So it was a great event.
So what do the global markets look like right now for green hydrogen and green ammonia, given some of the tumultuous times that we're in right now?
Yeah, and it's it's often said that through these tumultuous times comes great opportunity as well, and we're seeing that now. With some of the challenges that Canada faces, with our southern neighbor, for example, and the interest in diversifying trade and trade partnerships, and so knowing that Europe is a key target, at least initially, for our product. There is strong support in having, strong trade agreements with European partners at this time, as we believe there will always be. And so there's great support for our project in Europe with key partners, and there's still a strong desire, especially with the legislation in place in Europe, to focus on decarbonization, in particular, focus on areas that are hard to decarbonize with products like hydrogen, and green ammonia. And so we believe that the markets are strong and that there's an appetite for our product, and we'll see that eventuating in time.
Now, when I attended an announcement some months ago at your facility in Point Tupper about the new tugboats, it was mentioned at the time that the expectation was there was going to be some kind of announcement or arrival or some kind of an event this summer about the tugboats. Is that still on? And do you guys know a date on that? And do you know when the tugboats will be arriving?
We are very excited for the arrival of the tugs, and there will be an event that we're hosting. I was just on a call earlier this morning that was talking about that, and with one of our key staff member that's overseeing the arrival of the tugs, we were looking at his map last Friday of where they're at, and they're just off the west coast of Africa, heading north. So they're well and truly en route, and we're expecting them to arrive kind of mid to late July. We're anticipating an event to occur in August. We're just wanting to get better time frames on arrival and ensure that we'll be able to host the relevant event. But certainly, I can't give you a date today, but there's definitely there's still strong interest to hold a community event associated with the arrival of those tugs, knowing that they will benefit the entire strait area. So I think likely at that announcement you heard that the tugs currently are being used about 50% by EverWind and 50% by other users in the strait, and that will continue with the arrival of the new tugs. So we see them as a great asset for EverWind, but a great asset for the community, including in relation to obviously the businesses within the strait, but the response within the strait. So I was involved in the PTMS spill response training last week, and as part of that unit, they rely on the use of the tugs associated with the response to different events within the strait, and having the new tugs on hand to support with those services with firefighting will be a great addition to the amazing emergency response measures that we currently have in place for the strait.
I'm sure you'll let us know when you have that event with the tugboats. Look forward to that. We were tentatively promised a trip on the tugboats, but we'll see if that happens or not. But
yeah, you'll certainly know as soon as I do what the date is, and definitely the invitation is there for you guys to be at the event.
No, that'd be great. I'm looking forward to it. Do you foresee any other events, announcements, any other milestones coming up in the weeks, months ahead?
Certainly, we will be very active in the strait area this summer. We're happy to be supporting a number of the festivals and events that are taking place throughout the strait, and want to have the opportunity to speak to people at those events. So we'll have staff present at different events throughout the strait this summer. And we find that, hosting specific events like community presentations is great way to get information out, and specifically to those people that are very keen to find out specific information and to have their specific questions addressed. Oftentimes at events like the Granville Green, which we've been sponsoring for a number of years now, there are, it's a well-attended event because it's, beautiful location, great artists that are involved with it, wonderful organizers. So to have the opportunity to just speak to, a broad array of people at those events can be really beneficial to talk about the opportunities that are possible with projects like this, and in particular kind of around talking about schedules and talking about employment opportunities, for example, procurement opportunities with people throughout the summer. Now, that's not necessarily what they're going to these events for, but if they stop by at our tables and want to learn more about the project as they're walking past, it's certainly a good way to have those conversations.
And a good way, I guess, to get some feedback from the public, from people that you may not have reached, or different viewpoints, different perspectives, I guess, as well, too.
Exactly, Jake. Yep, it's great. It's a great all around way. And, it's one of the things, for example, in Guysborough at our office, we've been hosting or holding barbecues right out in front of the office and getting kind of passerbyers to stop by offering free hot dogs and whatnot. And it's a great way just to start conversations. And that's what we expect from being involved in a number of these events and having a presence there. It's a way to start conversations with people that potentially that we haven't engaged with previously.
Now, overall, what stage is the project at, and what stage are you entering, and I guess where do things stand right now?
So we're very excited to be advancing a number of our phase 1 wind sites. And so currently, 3 of our phase 1 wind sites have packages out for RFP on the balance of plant. So requests for proposals on the construction of those wind sites. And that would, we're expecting responses back from leading consortiums of organizations by the end of July to make some key decisions later this year that would see 3 projects going into construction early next year. So that would include Gamitnook, Bear Lake, as well as Windy Ridge. And so we're very excited to reach a final investment decision on those projects and move them into construction, which will then obviously lead in well to the construction of our phase 1 plant and then our phase 2 developments as well. So we're excited to have those packages out and to be receiving documents back from real industry leaders insofar as the ones that will be, constructing these sites. So it's quite excited. It's quite an exciting time for EverWind as we move our first sites into construction.
Well, that's great. I look forward to hearing from you in the future and keeping abreast of what's going on there. And I'd like to thank you for sitting down, speaking with me and our viewers, and answering my questions. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Jake. And as always, happy to take the time to speak to you and your viewers.
A number of local organizations were turned down for student summer grants this year. Cape Breton-Canso Antigonish MP Jaime Batiste responded via email that applications to the program for 2025 were approved under the previous electoral boundaries and by the Member of Parliament who occupied the former riding of Cape Breton-Canso prior to the federal election. Due to significant geographical shift from Sydney, Victoria to Cape Breton-Canso Antigonish, Batiste said the large majority of denied applications within the current riding were decided by the previous MP in the now defunct riding of Cape Breton-Canso. For additional context, Batiste said the majority of approved applications within the current riding of Sydney Glace Bay would have been approved in his capacity as the MP for Sydney Victoria. Batiste added that he is hopeful that more funding will become available for previously denied organizations in the coming weeks, and that as many organizations as possible will have these denials rectified. However, should this occur, Batiste said it is his understanding that selected recipients of any newly unlocked funding would not be chosen by members of Parliament, but rather the department responsible. Sydney Glace Bay MP Mike Kellaway's office did not respond to a request for comment. Mila Roy in the Media Relations Office of Employment and Social Development Canada wrote via email that eligible employers were able to apply for Canada Summer Jobs funding during the call for applications, which ran from November 19th, 2024 to December 19th, 2024. As outlined in the applicant guide, Roy said Service Canada began informing employers of the status of their applications in April 2025 and will continue to inform them into the summer months. Funding may become available later in the season if approved employers are unable to fill the jobs as intended, allowing Service Canada to reinvest in organizations that were not initially selected for funding and to maximize youth employment opportunities, Roy noted. If an employer is approved for funding that becomes available later in the season, Roy said they will be informed in writing by Service Canada. Information on how employers' applications are assessed for eligibility and quality is available in the applicant guide, Roy said. She said the objectives of the CSJ program are to provide quality work experiences for youth, to provide opportunities for youth to develop and improve their skills, and to respond to national and local priorities to improve access to the labor market for youth who face unique barriers. In the applicant guide, Roy said prospective employers are informed that, due to oversubscription, not all eligible employers' projects will be funded, and organizations that do receive funding may not receive the level of funding requested or the amount of funding received in previous years. Roy said CSJ 2025 is not a renewal or extension exercise for organizations that received funding in the past. It is a new call for applications with new priorities, giving an equal opportunity for funding to new organizations. The 2025 federal election did not have an impact on the application review process or the rollout of funds for CSJ 2025, Roy responded. The Canada Summer Jobs Program includes an MP review phase, which ran from March 4th to 14th, Roy said, noting that, as usual, members of Parliament had the opportunity to review the list of eligible assessed projects for their constituencies and to provide feedback to help ensure local priorities were met. This process took place before the 2025 federal election period, she said. Employers should read the applicant guide and refer to it closely when completing their application to ensure they are demonstrating the quality of proposed jobs in relation to the program's objectives and how the job aligns with national and/or local priorities, Roy added.
Joining me is the Manager of Forest Protection with the Nova Scotia Department of Natural Resources. Welcome, Scott Tingley.
Hey, Jake, thanks for having us.
So there was a wildfire last month in the Framboise area of eastern Richmond County, which was out of control at one point. But the next day, the weather was damp. There was very little wind, so crews were able to extinguish it, not to diminish the role that they played in helping to extinguish it the days prior, but the weather did cooperate. What is your reaction to the response to that fire, I guess?
We had a very quick response, as we often do through the volunteer fire departments and Department of Natural Resources. So firefighters were on scene quickly. They took good actions to limit the growth of the fire. It was fairly active when they first arrived, so that they had to use tactics, that kept firefighters safe and things like that. But that's very typical for wildfire. So yeah, they did a great job getting that one under control and minimizing the impacts and the losses.
And I guess there was some good fortune at play too, because the next day the weather did cooperate and there wasn't that hot, dry weather and high winds, which the winds would have been a major problem. And so the weather did cooperate, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, it did for sure. There were high winds on the first day, when it started. That was one of the contributing factors, the fire starting and moving like it did. We always welcome the weather, it always lends a helping hand, but it certainly was, the efforts of the crews that were on site as well that helped get that one under control. So with fires like that, even though the weather helps contain it, slow it down, we will be on site usually for a couple of days. Fires that size, it wasn't an extraordinary large fire, but wasn't a small fire either. And so crews will often spend a couple days continuing to put out hot spots and then monitoring the fire even for another day just to make sure, that's absolutely extinguished when they walk away and they pull out all the equipment.
Perhaps you could explain the difference between a forest fire and a wildfire.
I will do my best. Yeah, so a forest fire really is, in terms of wildfire management, it's a bit of an outdated term. It's what we used to call wildfires, or wildland fires. So the language has kind of evolved from forest fire control, fire suppression to wildfire management over the years. And so wildfires generally are unplanned, fires out on the landscape that involve, for us, brush, woods, rock barren, things like that. But in some jurisdictions, administratively, even grass fires and things like that can be interpreted as wildfires, but they're generally, fires out in the landscape that are outdoors, burning the vegetation. It would be a broad general kind of definition, but it just takes on a little bit of nuance depending on what, area you are and what types of vegetation and fuel, we're dealing with. Yep.
What is the danger of wildfires at the moment, given the lack of sustained precipitation and hotter, drier weather that we're experiencing recently?
What we're seeing is wildfire risk is increasing, in some areas that haven't received some of the heavy showers in the last few days. So we're generally going through, like you described, a bit of a drying trend, we call it, with some areas receiving showers intermittently, and those areas seeing, the risk is reducing a bit, maybe for a few days. With this hot, humid weather, the humidity actually helps to mitigate the risk somewhat. So it's reducing some of the risk of fires igniting and spreading quickly. That's the humidity is helping with that, but the heat and the lack of precipitation is contributing to what we call some of our fire weather indices increasing over time. So when we talk about fire risk and fire starting and spreading, some of the components we talk about are wildfire fuels. So that's the twigs, trees, the forest floor layer, and they dry out at different rates. So the kind of finer, smaller things like the grass, the twigs, they dry out quickly, and they contribute to fire igniting, more easily and spreading quickly. And so they're more susceptible to the daily change. And then some of the larger fuels or the deeper forest floor, they take a little bit longer to dry out, but they also take a bit longer to get wet from rain. So they require more moisture. So they kind of follow a longer term trend. And so what we're seeing with days without rain is those larger fuels are just drying out slowly, and they'll contribute to fire intensity and some of the challenges we would have, like the deeper the burns will happen as fuels dry out, the more challenging the fires and more efforts required to fully extinguish them.
Now, I asked earlier about, I guess, the short-term outlook for the forest fire season, but given the long-term forecast, I believe a lot of what is being said is the heat's going to continue through to September. And I guess that is also kind of gives some cause for concern that the wildfire season could possibly get worse or extend a little further than what is normal. Is that possible?
It's certainly possible, and we receive long-term forecasts as part of our planning. And you kind of always have, with long-term forecasting, it's obviously it's more difficult to be, the accuracy kind of goes down. But certainly any indications that we get that there's going to be more heat or more wind, or things are going to be drier, less precipitation, certainly will increase the risk. It's something we monitor on a daily and even hourly. We monitor the weather hourly. We've got weather stations positioned all around the province, and all of our planning and a lot of our tactical decision making is based on those weather readings that we get. And generally we can best plan for the 24 to 48 hour window, and then anything after that, it's very difficult to kind of plan accurately around the weather, particularly in Nova Scotia, as a lot of people would know. And every season is a little different. The wildfire season in Nova Scotia runs from March 15th to October 15th, the regulated season. And that's because, we do have years where, March is more active than others. October can be more active. It just depends on the weather patterns. 2023 would be an example. We had extraordinary challenging conditions in Nova Scotia, and we were in a severe precipitation deficit that spring. It barely rained in March and April, at least for large parts of the province. And, that resulted in some pretty, what I would call severe conditions relatively early in the season. By late April, early May, we were already into, seeing fire conditions that we wouldn't expect, probably for another month or 6 weeks. So again, we will monitor the weather. And we set the daily burn restrictions based on what the conditions are, and we'll just have to see kind of what the later summer. But so fire season certainly can extend well into September and October. Is not really that unusual. Yeah.
Now in this area, and I suppose it's the case across much of Nova Scotia, there are many dead trees that were blown down during hurricanes and tropical storms. Hurricane Dorian comes to mind. How much of a fire hazard are these dead or dying trees?
In the first year or two of the trees, falling and starting to die, there's an increased risk, and that's assuming they completely fall down, they completely die. And there's a range. Some of them have fallen kind of partially over, and they haven't quite died, or so there's kind of a range of effects. But for trees that have fallen and died and started to dry out, there's about a year to 2 seasons where, as the needles are falling off and some of the finer twigs are drying out and breaking down, there is an increased risk in those areas of fires igniting more easily and spreading. But the larger parts of the trees, they're going to take more time to dry out. They're not really contributing to the risk in terms of fire, but they do contribute to the risk of firefighters accessing the ground on those fires. So our crews have to spend more energy cutting trails into the fire, because they need not only pathways to pull their hose and their tools and their pumps and things like that, but they also need exit ways. If there's an emergency or someone gets hurt and they need to kind of transport them out, they need those pathways to get into the forest. So they're putting more energy into cutting through those logs. So there's a risk in that sense. After the first couple of seasons of those trees falling and dying, the risk is significantly reduced in terms of fires igniting easily and spreading. But again, those larger parts of the trees, they contribute to what we call forced fuel. And so they take more time to dry out, but as they do dry out, they can contribute to fire intensity. So again, which the more intense the fire, that contributes to, just takes more effort to suppress them and fully extinguish them. So yeah, that's kind of how risk is impacted by. But for the most part, a lot of those areas, and again, our department, we put a lot of energy into mapping all those areas, so we know where a lot of the Fiona specifically blowdown is. And there's been a significant amount of effort actually put into cleaning up some of those areas. The department's had a program to fund some cleanup around the counties most heavily impacted and try to reduce some of that risk.
Now you spoke about that, about planning for the forest fire season and looking at the weather and things like that. But I assume part of that planning is also marshaling resources, manpower, infrastructure, things of that nature, and having that prepared and ready to go at a moment's notice. I assume that's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's regular business for our department, and as well as the volunteer municipal fire departments all around the province. We work very closely with them. The volunteers are often first on scene to most wildfires in Nova Scotia, just given their, the number of departments around the province, their proximity, to the areas, the counties that they serve. And they maintain readiness. We work closely with them. We provide equipment to the volunteers as part of our wildfire management program. So they're equipped with wildland fire equipment that's provided by the department, as well as their own equipment they invest in. And of course, our department has we've got department depots in every county, and every office has its own cache of equipment. And there's a seasonal fire crew at each office, plus year-round permanent staff who are also trained in firefighting and incident management. And yeah, but a lot of the work that we do is planned around the fire season. Staff are rostered in every region of the province, as well as here in the Provincial Wildfire Coordination Center, 7 days a week. And we're ready to take the calls and respond when needed. So.
Now, during a wildfire, what is the role of the Department of Natural Resources? Specifically, how do you coordinate with municipalities and local volunteer fire departments?
It starts with really relationships. Our local offices, the local DNR offices in the counties, they have built and they maintain relationships with the local municipal fire departments as well as the municipalities. Many of our staff are actually members of their own local volunteer fire departments. So we've got a strong culture of relationships and collaborations that way. There's formal training that we do together. So our local DNR offices are responsible to administer training with the volunteers on an annual basis. And as well, they host pre-season meetings, to collaborate, get up to speed on any changes in programs and things like that. And then, of course, we respond together, shoulder to shoulder, like I said, virtually at every fire in Nova Scotia. So there's a very strong working relationship there.
Yeah, and of course, there are firefighter crews that you guys have. And then there's the resources such as the helicopters, planes, and things like that. Now, in the case of the fire in Framboise area, the aerial infrastructure that you have wasn't required. It could have been, I guess, if it would have got bigger. And so I assume that there's some kind of threshold there for deciding how big a forest fire is before you guys bring in the helicopters and the planes.
There is, yeah. So the department operates and maintains 4 helicopters, and they're based here in Shubenacadie. They're allocated so similar to all of our resources, based on what the fire hazard, the risk is. That will determine kind of what alert readiness level they're on each day. When they're ready to go, when it's hot and dry, they're ready to go in a moment's notice. Often they're parked here in Shubenacadie waiting for the call. They can be pre-positioned anywhere in the province, but we have a couple of kind of primary bases in, being in Bedeck or McGowan Lake, that they can be pre-positioned if that's where the hazard or the risk is. And it's not so much a size threshold per se. It's more, there's a lot of things that factor into, ultimately it's the incident commander that's on site at the fires, which, for wildfires would be a DNR staff member. And so their responsibility and part of their role to determine what the resource requirements are for a particular incident. So they're going to factor in things like values at risk, how what the fire behavior is. So can they contain it with ground crews, with the resources they have it, or do they require aircraft to get with the bucket, with a helicopter with a bucket, splashing water from the air? Would that be more effective to help contain this one? There's a number of factors that play in there. And then in terms of fixed wing, traditional kind of water bombers that folks see on the news and things like that. We don't own and operate those here in the province, but we have pretty readily access to them through mutual aid agreements, through the other provinces and things like that. So we can pretty much get anything we need. And all these things take a little bit of time. They got to get to the site and things like that. But yeah, we generally have access to anything we need just based on what's happening at the fire site.
Now, what should people do to prepare for the eventuality of a wildfire emergency or an evacuation? What are some of the tips that the department provides to the public?
It starts with wildfire prevention with us. So one of the first things folks can do is follow the daily burn restrictions that are posted every day at 2 p.m. So those are posted on our website, and there's also a toll-free number that people can call. All the information is on our Department of Natural Resources website, and the daily burn restrictions are updated every day at 2 p.m. So it lets people know if the conditions are safe and they're permitted to either have a fire at 2 p.m., at 7 p.m., or not at all. And there's never domestic burning permitted between the hours of 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. each day. Again, we just encourage everybody at 2 p.m. They're updated every day. Check in before they light their campfire or light their brush pile or things like that. It's really important. And then on top of that, we visit sites like firesmart.ca or Nova Scotia FireSmart, or as well, they could visit their local DNR office. In many cases, their municipality has resources on that they can share on FireSmart as well. And there's lots of practical tips in FireSmart that individual homeowners, community members can take on their own that aren't highly technical, don't cost a lot of money, but maybe some time and effort they can get guidance and tools on how to evaluate the risk in their area, and then make a plan to put some mitigations in place, and then take action on those plans. And it's things like assessing the landscaping materials that they're using in and around their home. But the basic principles are the closer you are to home, the less flammable materials you're either using in landscaping, or the types of trees that you have in proximity, things that could carry a fire from the wildland to your home and impact it or your community. So again, we encourage folks to reach out, and then they can get support again through the Department of Natural Resources, and in some cases through municipality to do community level assessments and do community plans. So it's a great program. It's a national program and brand, and again, lots of good tips and manuals and guides and things like that to help people to not only prevent forest fires, but also mitigate the impacts if they do have a forest fire in their area or impacting them.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with me and answer my questions and offer some very important information to our viewers. Thank you very much.
Yeah, likewise, Jake. We really appreciate you reaching out.
Joining me today is the Manager of Public Engagement and Community Health Board Support with Nova Scotia Health's Eastern Zone. Welcome, Aaron Ashton.
Thank you for having me. Merci.
Eastern Zone Community Health Boards launched the Community Health Plan for 2025-2029 at the Port Hawkesbury Civic Center on June 21st. Priorities within the 5-year plan were shaped through extensive community engagement conducted between November 2023 and March 2024. Feedback was received through 5 in-person local engagement sessions, 673 comment cards, and 380 responses to an online survey. This feedback from more than 1,095 recorded responses reflected comprehensive and diverse needs, according to Nova Scotia Health. One of those was housing. What did the feedback say about that issue particularly?
Well, that anything else that you're hearing in the province right now, that there's a shortage. Similar to housing, we're looking at the other determinants of health around income and food. And if you think about the essential determinants of health right now, or the social and commercial determinants of health that they can be used synonymously with one another, a lot of those things right now, those it's the big ticket issues. And what the community health boards were able to validate through a lot of the engagement, both as you mentioned in the preamble there, through in person and online, is that yep, the housing is still very much an issue, and it's going to be for quite some time too. So, the provincial government is aware of that, and the community citizens, just as I said before, validated the fact that housing right now is in a crisis. It's at a demand right now that requires more of that support. And what the community health boards were able to do with the community health plan was just to hear really what the community is saying when it comes to a priority like housing.
And I assume the shortage of housing and the lack of affordable housing, lack of housing options does in some ways undermine health.
Yes, very much so. As I said before, too, is that the determinants of health are one of the things, one of the frameworks right now that guides the community health boards. And because housing is essential, if people don't have it, then yes, there are going to be implications on their health, similar to income and food. When those things aren't prevalent in someone's life, then the implications are going to be that it's going to be on their health, which taxes the healthcare system even more.
Now, you just mentioned food, specifically food security. Maybe you can
hmm
get into the specifics of that. I think it's quite obvious if there's a lack of access to good, healthy food, that can undoubtedly undermine health as well.
Yes, for sure. And really, what we were trying to focus on through the community health planning and the engagement sessions was just to try to understand really where the gaps are and where the gaps exist when it comes to food. And food insecurity, and potentially what some of those solutions are. So, a lot of what we were hearing between online and in person was locally, what is it that we can tap into in an affordable, manageable way where the food access can be increased to those who actually require the food. So when you look at some of the parts of the Eastern Zone and what I refer to them as rurally isolated, then access to food becomes even more of a demand. It becomes challenging. So what we were trying to do, and again, like I said before, to reinforce through the community health planning was to understand really what kinds of solutions may exist, and really what the community health boards can do to advocate to the decision makers when it comes to food insecurity.
Now, and you alluded to this as well, income. What specifically are we talking about with income? We're talking about lack of income, low income. Is that what we're?
Yeah. So when we had the the consultations around the priorities, we worked with some of the local knowledge holders when it came to income, and one of the elements of income or under the umbrella of income is basic income. So we had someone speaking to that, Mandy K. Rainingbird speaking to that, but overall income in and of itself is lacking right now, and the idea of what what are some of the practices that other provinces, other parts of the world are applying to try to address this and really, like I was saying before, to bridge that gap to understand what can how can people live with an adequate income right now that can assure that they can be able to receive and afford the essential parts of living a healthy life. And that's around food and that's around income and access and resources like that.
Teresa McGinnis, chair of the Eastern Zone's Community Health Plan, said the plan gives voice to local health issues. Are there many differences between communities when it comes to health issues, or is it more regional and less local?
Yeah, so what the zone community health plan was able to do was really try to paint a bit of a picture because the Eastern Zone is very big about really what the issues that were like bubbling to the top around income, housing, and food. But that's not to say that locally, of the 9 community health boards that exist, there aren't some of those other subtle issues that are coming to that are part of the table discussions when the community health boards meet every month too. So I guess really it depends on locally what those community health board members are talking about and what they're hearing from their communities. But overall, at the zone level, with this community health plan, those were the main three priorities right now that I think you see just really woven through every community. It's a little bit different and unique, but I think overall, the same kinds of issues exist.
And because they're so important, I guess it's good to prioritize and say, okay, these are three issues that we really have to deal with just because of their significance.
Yeah, and really what the zone council of chairs will be doing now when the CHB members reconvene in September is to try to figure out like really what a map out an outline, map out a plan to try to figure out how they want to spend their time. Because as we know, the community health board members, the same volunteers are volunteering in other aspects of their lives as well too. So what myself and the staff do is just to try to support them to figure out how they can make some of these decisions a little bit easier on them and to understand really the priority at the zone level can trickle down to the community and the local community levels as well too. So that will be in the fall to figure out really what some of these next steps are to operationalize the community health plan for the next 3.5 to 4 years before the next cycle of community health planning begins.
McGinnis also said health inequalities was an important factor, specifically access to services for medical and non-medical factors influencing outcomes and healthy living. Maybe you can, I guess the services for medical factors, I guess is obviously, is quite clear, but what did it mean by non-medical factors?
So at that point, we're trying to figure out, as I said before, because of the size of and the geography of the Eastern Zone, we're trying to figure out really what kinds of elements right now can, as I said before, bridge some of those gaps when it comes to accessing different pieces of what makes a community. So we're looking at recreational pieces as well too. We're looking at even just food. We're looking at things that can address social isolation. So some of the areas of the Eastern Zone are limited when it comes to transportation. So that actually was one of those other priorities that wasn't the top three, but it would have been the fourth or fifth thing that people said that this is an issue to us right now. And I think they're all connected. So one of the things, just as an example, that we did for June 21st is we reached out to the Nova Scotia Community Transportation Network, and they have, I think it's upwards of 18 or 19 different networks around the province, and we were very fortunate to connect with Lackaby in around the North Inverness Shetty Camp area, and they were willing to provide some support to us to get people to the actual event June 21st to celebrate the community health plan. And it creates a little bit of more of that exposure right now for the transportation network to say that this is out there, and if you need to go to places right now and you're limited in how you can get there, then here's one of those other organizations you can reach out to: Straight Area Transit, Antigonish, Victoria County Transit. So those are some of those other networks right now that are available for people to access to get to the some of those other areas that they need to.
Now, in the press release that was issued after the community health plan was released, you said that Eastern Zone community health boards advocate for actions to promote and improve health and wellness based on what communities say is most important. They use their collective voice to build, strengthen, and bolster relationships to bridge the gap of issues affecting people living in their communities. Guided by their community health plans, the Eastern Zone's 9 community health boards develop partnerships with local community groups and award wellness fund grants to local community projects.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it to bring everyone together, and how much of a challenge is that in the Eastern Zone, considering how geographically spread out it is?
Yeah. So it's really important to get that collective voice, and I think that was apparent when you saw the amount of people that responded or participated in the Eastern Zone Community Health Plan, upwards of almost 1,100. So it's a good representation. But really, what we're trying to do with these kinds of engagements is a reflection. We want to try to hear from as many people as possible too. So when it does come to that point of being a true advocate for the communities, and speaking to Nova Scotia Health leadership, IWK leadership, municipalities, and the municipal leadership there too. That when they hear of all the hard work that the volunteers are putting in to create a community health plan like this, which took 2.5 years. So that's a big piece. That's a big chunk of obviously of their time, which they have a legislative responsibility to do so. But I think the biggest part right now is collectively when we can hear and we can gather all these different kinds of comments, then we can understand what some of those next steps look like. And therein lies some of the challenges as well too. So as I said before, the rurally isolated parts of Cape Breton, when you look at connectivity to internet, the reception of internet when that's a bit shoddy, you're looking at transportation, and you're looking at again some of those other elements that really make people feel connected to community. When those kinds of pieces are at play, then that's challenging too. So when we can try to get out in the community and hear some of those unheard voices, then we can try to take that information and see what kind of changes or solutions we can create.
You also noted that bringing together Nova Scotia's 35 community health boards under one community health plan umbrella has been a provincial milestone. How much of a challenge has that been, considering the differences around the province? Now, we talked about regionally in the Eastern Zone, the challenges, but when you look at it on a provincial level, I guess that's quite a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah, and I think really a testament to the hard work that's been done at the zone and local levels is the representation right now that the Community Health Board body has at the Provincial Council of Chairs. So what the Provincial Council of Chairs are responsible for is they have a representation or a voice from each zone that connect quarterly, and they're able to bring some of these pieces forward to say, okay, listen, we know that the bookends of the province, for example, Western and Eastern Zone, there's some differences, but there's also some similarities. Similar to Central and Northern, where Central is really the hub, the HRM and surrounding areas, that there's pros and cons to being in there as well too. So what we try to do provincially through the provincial council chairs is to understand some of those pieces right now that are manageable, and that the CHBs can take back to their local communities, and connect with them there, but also in the same token, locally, that groundswell that's created at the local level can also provide some impact at the provincial council of chairs level as well too. So it's one of those things that's going back and forth, and I think the biggest piece of trying to address different kinds of gaps and issues in and around the province is to understand that everyone is being heard. So provincially, zonally, and then locally, all those pieces of information are being communicated effectively to ensure that we can come up with some solutions, or we can take some solutions to decision makers to help make some of those decisions after that.
Now, it was noted the Eastern Zone 2025-2029 Community Health Plan is also a tool to guide advocacy to Nova Scotia Health, the IWK, the Department of Health and Wellness, Office of Addictions and Mental Health, Action for Health Solution 6, and others on shared priorities. This roll-up of the Eastern Zone Community Health Plan will also identify alignment with Action for Health strategy to address health and well-being factors through government support for partnerships, collaboration, and strengthening community-based wellness efforts. Is it possible the priorities you mentioned earlier could change over the next 5 years, with time, with changing factors, with whatever unforeseen circumstances?
I would like to think so. I mean, it would be great if we can, if nothing else, put a bit of a dent into addressing some of these large priorities. But I think that because they're so broad, and it's a systemic thing right now, that I think it's going to be some of those things that there might be adjustments. As an example for the zone community health plan priorities, but I don't think that we'll veer off that. I think housing and food and income are going to be around for the foreseeable future. So it's trying to figure out, with when we have Nova Scotia Health Leadership, DHW, and IWK, and some of the other organizations that you mentioned as well too, it's making sure that they are they're keeping their finger on the pulse. And what the community health boards are able to do is provide that information and provide that pulse of here's what the community is saying, here's what's happening in the community, and how do we address that properly too. So I think anecdotally it's important that the decision makers know what's happening, and quantitatively it's important. And with the community health plan, the Eastern Zone and the other zones, we have that through the community health plan.
Now, it's impossible to predict what could happen in the next 5 years. But from what you're saying, there could be some flexibility in these priorities that maybe there could be some changes or tweaks to them depending on what happens that we really can't account for right now or predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that with the zone community health plan, we're looking at this as guiding really what the community health boards want to focus on for the next 4.5 years, and these are going to guide them locally, but zonally, as I said before, the zone council chairs are going to be able to really use this to mobilize around some of the initiatives that can happen at the zone level, where collectively 9 community health boards and upwards of 100 volunteers may be able to really push through and change the needle, so to speak, of how some of these issues are being addressed. And as I said before too, that this could also have that same kind of impact or effect at the provincial level as well too. So really, the one thing I do know about the community health board volunteers at all zones, but especially the Eastern Zone, is that they're very passionate about what their community health looks like, and they have that sort of the barometer of that, and they keep that in check too. So they bring a lot of those issues to their tables monthly and then quarterly at the zone, and then subsequently some of those other pieces at the provincial council, the chairs as well too. So they're really good at sharing information that is going to have some kind of an impact on the community in a positive way.
Recognizing the proven impact of the social determinants of health on the health and wellness outcomes of Nova Scotians, community health boards said they are eager to work with all interest holders to advance these priorities over the next 5 years. The 2025-2029 Community Health Plan will help to shape a healthier, more connected Nova Scotia. So now that the plan has been released, you mentioned that the health boards are going to reconvene in September. So what happens then in September when they can reconvene, and then what happens after those meetings in September and in the weeks and months ahead?
Yeah, so what'll happen in September is the community health boards will do their monthly meetings. And part of these standing agenda items will include the community health plan, among other things as well too. So really, what they'll do for those 10 months is to understand how they're going to support some of the local community organizations. Be it through community health plan implementation funding or wellness funding. Those are the 2 streams of funding right now that are able to support some of these community initiatives that are connected in some way, shape, or form to the community health plan priorities. And food, income, and housing are large enough and they're broad that we can find different kinds of inroads to ensure that even locally that some of those other community initiatives can be supported at the local CHB level too. So that's really what they'll work on in September, is just trying to again mobilize around what's happening in their community when it comes to food and housing and income, among other local and subtle priorities as well too, and address that throughout the year. And that means that they're bringing information forward at their zone council chairs in the networking element as well too, which they really appreciate. And then anything else that we can partner with in terms of creating or supporting events when it comes to the community health plan priorities. That's the other piece that the CHBs are really good at doing. What's happening in October, Jake, is the provincial CHB conference. So this happens every 2 years.
Okay.
And really a lot of the focus at the provincial conference in October is going to be around really what zones are doing to mobilize around their community health plan priorities. And then provincially, there's going to be a focus really around policy And policy in the CHBs, I mean, the policies that we follow really are NSH oriented, but we're also looking at figuring out what policies happen at the zone level, or what policies can be created or leveraged when it comes to supporting the community health boards and the work they're doing, trying to expand themselves. So that's going to happen in October. And thinking about that, where at that point, the CHPs will have been together for a month and a half, we could connect that at that point, maybe after the conference, and I might be able to give you some more information to say, okay, here's what we talked about. Here's some of the things that we're going to do going forward that are going to really supplement and solidify really what the zones are going to do with their community health plan priorities. So that's an option as well.
I hope to follow up on this very important work in the coming months, because it seems something that's of great interest to the community for sure. So perhaps we'll be talking again in the near future.
I hope so. I'd like that. And any opportunity that we do have to connect, Jake, it would be great. And I appreciate you being able to do this for us and get the word out there about the community health boards and all the great work that they're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you making time for me and speaking with our viewers and answering my questions. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Merci.
The provincial government announced 41 projects receiving funding that help older Nova Scotians live healthy, active lives in their communities. Among the local projects, the Dr. Kingston Memorial Community Health Centre was greenlit for $10,000 for bridging gaps in senior care and volunteer engagement, a study to identify solutions for gaps in senior care and ways to engage seniors in volunteering, enhancing social connections and well-being. Key activities include identifying unmet needs like respite care and transportation, and research will determine successful care models for local adaptation. There will be consultation with seniors and community groups for insights, and there will be the development of frameworks for safe and effective volunteer engagement. The aim of the study is to provide actionable recommendations to bridge senior care gaps, connect seniors with community support, and foster volunteerism while promoting dignity and inclusion. Budladek First Nation was approved for $10,000 for Richmond Kisiko Center Elder Support Project, which aims to enhance the well-being of elders through cultural workshops, mental health support, and social inclusion, fostering connection and preserving traditions in a welcoming environment. Among the key activities of the project are cultural workshops like quilt making, ribbon skirt making, peak hat making, and drum making to celebrate and preserve cultural heritage. Weekly events are activities designed to encourage engagement and connection among elders. Community outreach entails the sharing of information through hand-delivered newsletters and social media to ensure accessibility and involvement. The impact of the project is to strengthen relationships, preserve cultural traditions, and support elders' mental health and social inclusion, creating a vibrant and inclusive community. This year, more than $500,000 is being invested through the Age-Friendly Community Grant Program. The program provides up to $25,000 each for efforts to create age-friendly environments and promote healthy aging. The Age-Friendly Communities Grant Program opens for applications in the fall. Groups eligible to apply include not-for-profit organizations and cooperatives, municipalities, First Nations communities, and universities. The province added that individuals and businesses are not eligible to apply.
Hello, everybody. Becky here. I'm here today with Rohan David, and Rohan David has just completed a course at the Richmond County Literacy Network, and I was wondering how it all went.
Yeah, no, it went great, honestly. Like, Anne-Marie was my teacher, and I was pretty confident in my ability to take care of the GED, now called the CAIC, right? And, I delayed it a little bit as taking care of my kids, but then when I finally went in there, she gave me the confidence to be able to really, hunker down, despite, the time frame that I had, take care of it, and, now I've passed the cake and I'm on to university, right?
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. And now, did that experience obviously helped you? Did it give you any confidence to do that, or did you just not have the time at the time?
It definitely gave me the confidence to do it because of the way that Anne-Marie taught me, right? I think she's had lots of experience in teaching adults in a specific way where they can, comprehend it, right? It wasn't like I was fully confident about the way that I could do it, but going there and her saying that it's not a big deal, and she has a way of speaking, right? And she's able to take care of that. And I think the program in general, right, where it was more individualized, that was great for me. That was definitely good for me. I mean, confidence-wise, it definitely has boosted my confidence because now it's quantifiable that I'm able to get high school done, right? I knew I could, but this has given me something on paper from an unbiased third party, right?
Right. And I mean, the Richmond County Literacy Network is a very important organization in this community. I hope that more people start to use it. I mean, I know people do, but I would like to see more success stories like you.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And Anne-Marie, you're right about that. I know Anne-Marie, and Anne-Marie is an impeccable teacher, very patient.
Yeah.
Always a smile on her face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I really like about Anne-Marie. She's got a great demeanor.
Yes.
Yeah. So now, if you were to say to somebody, if somebody said to you, why should I go? Why should I take these courses at the Literacy Network? What would you tell them?
I think I would tell them, first of all, you have to be kind of self-motivated to finish high school, right? And it's, especially in our day and age in modern society, it's so important to have your high school, right? And it better late than never. And if you want to do it, but you're not confident in your ability to be able to go through with it, or you're uncertain about a few subjects, I think that would be the place for you to go, right? Because of the success that I've had in such a short period of time, it was essentially a snowball effect that had happened, right? I went in, I was unsure about a few things, and as I learned more and I gained more confidence to do the subjects that I had an issue with, it built my confidence to an extent where I could continue on with the other subjects, right? And if anybody wants to go there and learn, I think, it's a great resource to have within the community, especially here where there's not a whole lot of infrastructure regarding adult education, and I think that's really important, and we should try to utilize that.
Absolutely correct. I know that some people may be tentative about going. I know you're right about having a high school. That's very important.
Yes.
That's very important. Now you've been accepted into Cape Breton University. So what are you taking?
I'll be taking anthropology / sociology at CBU. Yeah.
Awesome. And then you're headed towards a different sort of degree.
Yes. I'm working towards getting my undergraduate, my bachelor's, to go to Dalhousie Law School.
That's fantastic. Yeah. We need more lawyers.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we do.
We do.
Yeah.
And to have that much confidence, that's fantastic. And I'm so happy that course did that for you, because a lot of times when we've been out of school for a while, or we didn't complete something that we maybe felt we should have,
yes,
and life got in the way, because that's what happens.
Yeah.
Life gets in the way, something happens, either you get married, you have children, or you move to a different place and you have to start all over, and life just happens.
Yep.
So to have that sort of experience at the Literacy Network, I'm so happy for you.
Yes, it was fantastic. I didn't even know that I wanted to go into law, and speaking to my teacher, she actually suggested maybe you should start reaching higher, right? You could achieve a lot more with what you have, right? And, speaking to her, she actually suggested maybe you should go into law with the way that you speak about things and the way that you can, make things happen in a way where it's said, but it's done as well.
Right.
And that was super important. And it was kind of an epiphany for me. I was like, I don't want to waste my talents. I don't want to waste my abilities. And she helped me with all the process of applying for the tests and even applying for universities and, the route I should take, and, being completely unknown to this higher education in general. It was confusing to me, and moving through it, she was able to, make it, like, simplify it for me in a way where I could understand, like, oh, this is what I'd have to do to get here, and build the confidence to be able to do something that I want to do, right?
It takes a very special person to be able to do that for another.
Yeah.
And I think from speaking to Anne Marie, I do know that she has a great deal of confidence in you.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's fantastic. And you can feel that when that happens, you know?
Yes.
When you have a supportive instructor, you're gonna excel
Yeah.
if you want to.
Yeah. It makes a world of difference.
Well, of
right?
course it does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's opened quite a few doors for you.
Yes, yes. The doors that have been open are astronomical in scale. To be frank, it's when I moved down here, it was I came here with nothing in August 2024 with my 2 children, nothing at all. I built it all from the ground up, and my thought was I was going to go to school, but I didn't want to do anything outrageous or something that I couldn't achieve. Realistic expectations of myself, but I feel like this is a realistic expectation considering the circumstances, considering how far I've come in such a short period of time. So
All right. So now you have a new lease on life.
I do.
Right
Yeah,
on.
Yeah,
I'm so happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure that, as you go forward, you're going to learn more and more and more. You're just going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yes, it's exciting. Like, I'm excited to learn now, essentially, right?
That's great.
Yeah.
And so I would think that anybody who's afraid to go should probably, take a lesson from you.
More of just understanding that anything new that you do, the hardest part is getting your foot in the door and just showing up for the first time despite, what nervousness or anxieties you may feel. It's always going to be difficult starting something new. Take the leap, right? It's worth it. You have nothing to lose at that point, right? If you don't want to continue, don't continue, but at least try.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Always try.
Yes.
I know that in some cases, some of the older people that have taken courses probably, I know from just having friends that are older and not used to computers or something, and stuff like that, it can be very intimidating.
Yeah.
I had one lady that said to me one time, I don't like that my grandchildren know how to turn on a computer and I don't.
I think, it's a technological gap along with the societal change that.
Right.
It's the same thing as if you don't have a smartphone now, you can't exist within the modern world.
Right.
Right. But from my experience within this program, I could have done it from scratch without knowing how to use a computer. I am technologically savvy to begin with. I grew up as a Gen Z, but you don't need to know that much about computers. As long as you know letters, right, that's all you need. Like taking the actual tests, no technological skill was necessary, right? The instructor who actually took the test at NSCC was very useful, and she just said, this is how you need to do it. And I understood it already, but if I didn't, it would have been seamless to understand it.
Did you find that you knew more than you thought you did?
No, not as much. I think it's more of I was ready to learn, and I sat down and took the time for myself to learn it. And, my confidence was built up throughout I think around 4 months where I was, going to this program, right? And I, got considerably more confident the farther I went into it. And approaching the date of the actual tests, I was like, I got to the point where, like, I'm ready. I know that I'm ready, and there was no light switch that was flicked. You have to grind a little bit, but when you get there, you'll know you're there.
Well, I'll tell you what. I am looking forward to seeing what comes for you next.
Yes.
I really am, and I hope you stop by again and we can talk about how life in university was.
Yes.
For the first time, right? Is it your first?
This will be my first time.
See, so how cool is that?
It's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing where you go with it all. I really, really am. And it was so nice to meet you.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
You are very welcome. So if anybody is interested in taking a course at the Literacy Network, you can always reach the Richmond County Literacy Network by contacting Mitch David. There's a website. I will provide the website address at the end of the video. And thank you for watching, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you for watching. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about on The Record.